It's funny how life can change in an instant. One moment, you're living your version of happily ever after, and the next, you're plunged into a nightmare you never saw coming. That's how it was for me, John, a man in his 60s, looking back on a life that was once filled with hope and love. I remember the early days of our marriage with a warmth that still lingers in my heart. My wife and I, we were two puzzle pieces that fit perfectly together. We had our quirks and disagreements, sure, but underneath it all was a deep love and understanding that seemed unbreakable. We were blessed with two beautiful children, the lights of our lives. Watching them grow, seeing their laughter fill our home, those were the moments I cherished most. Our family was our sanctuary, our haven from the chaos of the world outside. But then, life threw us a curveball that shattered our perfect little bubble. It was a day like any other when my wife came to me with tears in her eyes and a trembling voice. "Something's wrong," she whispered, and my heart dropped like a stone. We rushed to the hospital, clinging to hope with desperate fingers, but fate had other plans. Our baby, the little life we had already begun to dream about, was gone. The doctor's words echoed in my mind like a cruel mantra: miscarriage. The journey home from the hospital was a silent one, filled with a heaviness that seemed to crush us both. My wife retreated into herself, consumed by grief and self-blame. She believed she had failed me, failed us, as if the loss of our child was somehow her fault. I tried to reassure her, to hold her close and tell her that it wasn't her fault, that we would get through this together. But grief has a way of distorting reality, of clouding even the brightest of hopes. And so, she withdrew further into herself, leaving me feeling helpless and alone. In those dark days that followed, I watched as my wife slipped away from me, lost in a sea of sorrow and regret. She barely spoke, barely ate, barely existed in the world outside our bedroom door. And try as I might, I couldn't reach her, couldn't bring her back to me. But perhaps what hurt the most was the realization that I was losing her to a grief I couldn't touch, couldn't heal. It was as if our love, once so strong and unbreakable, had been shattered along with our dreams of a future filled with laughter and joy. And so, as I look back on those early days of our marriage, I can't help but feel a sense of longing for the life we once shared. The life that was stolen from us by a tragedy we never saw coming. The life that ended before it had truly begun. But even in the midst of my grief, there is a glimmer of hope, a tiny spark of light that refuses to be extinguished. Because deep down, I know that love has a way of finding its way back to us, even in the darkest of times. And maybe, just maybe, there's still a chance for us to rewrite the ending to our story, to find our way back to each other once more. I never expected my life to take such a sharp turn. It was like being blindfolded and spun around until I lost all sense of direction. But sometimes, the truth has a way of revealing itself, even when you're not ready to face it. It all started with little things, subtle shifts in my wife's behavior that raised an eyebrow, made me question what I thought I knew. It was the late nights at work, the secretive phone calls whispered in hushed tones, and the sudden bursts of laughter that felt hollow, forced. At first I brushed it off, convincing myself that I was just being paranoid, that my mind was playing tricks on me. After all, we had been through so much together, weathered storms that would have torn others apart. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that there was a shadow lurking just beyond my reach. Then came the day I stumbled upon the truth, like a punch to the gut that knocked the wind out of me. I wish I could say it was some grand revelation, a dramatic confrontation that shattered the illusion of our perfect life. But it was nothing like that. It was just a fleeting glance at her phone, a glimpse of a message that spoke volumes in its silence. The words blurred together, swimming in front of my eyes as I struggled to make sense of what I was seeing. But there it was, plain as day, undeniable in its clarity. My wife, the woman I had vowed to love and cherish until death do us part, was having an affair. I wish I could say I reacted with stoic composure, that I faced the truth head-on with unwavering resolve. But the reality was far messier, far more chaotic than I ever could have imagined. I felt like a ship caught in a storm, tossed and turned by waves of anger, disbelief, and heartache. In those moments, time seemed to stand still, suspended in a haze of confusion and betrayal. I wanted to scream, to lash out at the world and everyone in it. But instead, I retreated into myself, burying my pain beneath a mask of stoicism and resolve. I knew I couldn't confront her right away, couldn't risk tipping my hand before I had all the facts. So I waited, biding my time as I gathered evidence, piece by agonizing piece. Each discovery felt like a dagger to the heart, a cruel reminder of the life we had built together, now crumbling to dust before my eyes. And yet, despite the overwhelming evidence stacked against her, I couldn't bring myself to face the truth. I clung to the hope that it was all just a misunderstanding, a series of coincidences that had been blown out of proportion. But deep down, I knew the truth, knew that our marriage was teetering on the edge of collapse. And as much as it pained me to admit it, I knew that I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. So I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation that lay ahead. Little did I know, it would be the first step on a journey that would change my life forever. After uncovering the devastating truth about my wife's affair, I found myself engulfed in a storm of conflicting emotions. Anger, betrayal, and a burning desire for vengeance churned within me, threatening to consume every ounce of my being. But amidst the turmoil, a steely resolve began to take root. I wasn't going to let this betrayal go unanswered. No, I was going to make them pay for the pain they had caused me. With each passing day, my mind buzzed with plans and schemes, like a strategist plotting his next move on the battlefield. I knew I had to play my cards right if I wanted to bring about the downfall of my wife's lover and unravel their deceitful affair. First, I began by discreetly gathering evidence, like a detective piecing together clues to crack a case. I scoured through phone records, sifted through emails, and meticulously documented every incriminating detail. Each revelation fueled my determination, driving me to delve deeper into the web of lies that had ensnared my marriage. Next, I set my sights on Mark, the despicable man who had wormed his way into my wife's heart. I knew that to truly unravel their affair, I had to strike at the heart of their relationship. So, I devised a plan to expose Mark's true colors to the world, like a puppeteer pulling the strings to reveal the ugly truth lurking beneath his charming facade. I started by anonymously tipping off the restaurant owner about the affair, knowing full well the chaos it would unleash in Mark's life. The news spread like wildfire, igniting a firestorm of scandal and gossip that threatened to consume Mark's reputation and tear apart his family. And as I watched from the sidelines, a twisted sense of satisfaction crept over me, knowing that I was the architect of his downfall. But I wasn't done yet. I knew that to truly break them apart, I had to drive a wedge between my wife and her lover. So, I began to engineer situations that would push them to their breaking point, like a puppet master pulling the strings to manipulate their every move. I planted seeds of doubt in my wife's mind, subtly hinting at the true nature of Mark's character and the deception that had clouded their relationship. I orchestrated chance encounters and whispered rumors that sowed discord between them, slowly eroding the foundation of their love until it crumbled beneath the weight of their own lies. And as their relationship began to unravel, I reveled in the chaos I had wrought, like a phoenix rising from the ashes of my shattered marriage. But amidst the rubble, a nagging sense of emptiness gnawed at my soul, reminding me of the price I had paid for my revenge. For while I may have succeeded in tearing them apart, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had lost a part of myself in the process. But it was a price I was willing to pay, for in the end, I had emerged victorious in my quest for vengeance. And as I looked upon the wreckage of their shattered lives, I knew that I had finally gotten the justice I so desperately sought. I found myself consumed by a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. The satisfaction of seeing my wife's affair unraveling before my eyes was overshadowed by an overwhelming sense of emptiness and regret. As the dust settled, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had crossed a line from which there was no return. The aftermath of my actions was swift and merciless. The once promising relationship between my wife and Mark crumbled under the weight of their own deceit. I watched from the sidelines as their world collapsed, each lie exposed and each betrayal laid bare for all to see. But amidst the chaos I had unleashed, I found myself grappling with my own demons. The satisfaction of revenge quickly turned sour, replaced by a hollow emptiness that gnawed at my soul. I had thought that bringing my wife and her lover to their knees would bring me closure, but instead, it left me feeling more lost and adrift than ever before. As I watched the fallout of my revenge play out, I couldn't help but wonder if I had made the right choice. Was it worth sacrificing my own sense of morality for the sake of vengeance? Had I truly achieved justice, or had I simply perpetuated a cycle of pain and suffering? The guilt weighed heavy on my conscience, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked within me. I found myself haunted by visions of what could have been, tortured by the knowledge that I had willingly chosen the path of destruction over the road to redemption. In the quiet moments of solitude that followed, I wrestled with my inner demons, grappling with the consequences of my actions. I longed for a sense of closure, a reprieve from the overwhelming guilt that threatened to consume me whole. But amidst the darkness, a glimmer of hope emerged. Despite the pain and regret that plagued me, I began to see the possibility of redemption. I realized that true forgiveness could only come from within, that letting go of my anger and resentment was the only way to find peace. And so, with a heavy heart and a weary soul, I began the long and arduous journey towards redemption. I knew that forgiveness would not come easy, that I would have to confront my own demons head-on if I ever hoped to find solace. But as I took the first tentative steps towards healing, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, a sense of liberation that I had long thought impossible. In letting go of my anger and resentment, I found a newfound sense of freedom, a clarity of purpose that had eluded me for so long. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, I found myself slowly but surely reclaiming my sense of self. I began to see the world through new eyes, to appreciate the beauty and wonder that had always been there, waiting for me to discover it. And amidst the chaos and turmoil of my past, I found a glimmer of hope, a flicker of light that guided me towards a brighter future. In the end, I realized that true redemption could only come from within, that forgiveness was not a gift to be bestowed by others, but a journey to be undertaken by the soul. As I sat alone in the dimly lit room, the memories of my past deeds weighed heavily on my conscience. The echoes of my revenge reverberated in the silence, reminding me of the bitterness that had consumed me for so long. But amidst the shadows of regret, a glimmer of hope emerged, beckoning me towards a path of redemption. The sound of the phone ringing shattered the stillness, jolting me out of my reverie. With trembling hands I reached for the receiver, hesitating for a moment before answering. It was her, my ex-wife, her voice filled with a mixture of apprehension and longing. She spoke of regret, of apologies whispered into the void, seeking solace in the fragments of our broken past. Her words pierced through the walls I had built around my heart, stirring emotions I had long thought buried beneath layers of resentment. Despite the pain she had caused, I couldn't ignore the vulnerability in her voice, the raw sincerity of her remorse. It was then that I realized, perhaps forgiveness was not a sign of weakness, but rather, a testament to the strength of the human spirit. With a heavy heart, I agreed to meet her, to confront the ghosts of our shared history and pave the way towards reconciliation. As I stood outside her door, the weight of uncertainty bearing down upon me, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the emotional tumult that awaited. As she opened the door, her eyes met mine, brimming with unspoken apologies and tentative hope. We stood there in silence, two souls adrift in a sea of regrets, yet bound together by the fragile threads of our shared past. With trembling hands, I reached out to her, offering a tentative embrace, a gesture of forgiveness tinged with the echoes of our shared pain. As we sat together, the words flowed freely, unburdening our hearts of the weight of years gone by. She spoke of her regrets, of the choices that had led us down this tumultuous path, while I listened in silence, my own heart heavy with remorse. Yet amidst the ashes of our broken dreams, a flicker of hope emerged, illuminating the darkness with the promise of a second chance. In that moment, I realized that forgiveness was not about forgetting the past, but rather, embracing the imperfections of our shared humanity. We were flawed, scarred by the trials of life, yet bound together by the unbreakable bonds of love and forgiveness. With tears streaming down her cheeks, she whispered words of gratitude, of disbelief tinged with tentative hope. And as I held her close, I knew that despite the scars that marked our journey, we were finally ready to embrace the future, together, as partners in redemption. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the room, I made a promise to myself, to let go of the bitterness that had consumed me for so long, and to embrace the gift of forgiveness with open arms. For in that moment, amidst the wreckage of our past, I found the courage to believe in the power of second chances, and the enduring strength of love. My ex-wife's life had been upended, her relationship with Mark shattered, and yet, amidst the chaos, I found no solace in my victory. Instead, I was left with a hollow ache, a gnawing regret that gnawed at my conscience. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, I found myself grappling with the aftermath of my actions. The emptiness within me grew, a gaping void that no amount of retribution could fill. I realized that in seeking vengeance, I had only inflicted more pain upon myself, further entrenching myself in a cycle of bitterness and resentment. But amidst the darkness, a glimmer of hope began to emerge. It was in the form of a simple gesture, a message from my ex-wife, reaching out with an olive branch of reconciliation. Her words stirred something within me, a flicker of forgiveness, a spark of compassion that I had thought extinguished. As we tentatively reconnected, the walls that had once divided us began to crumble, brick by brick, until there was nothing left but the raw vulnerability of two souls laid bare. We spoke of our regrets, our mistakes, our pain, and in those moments of shared vulnerability, I found a sense of catharsis, a release from the shackles of my past. With each conversation, each shared moment, I felt the weight of my bitterness slowly lift, replaced by a newfound sense of peace. Forgiveness, I realized, was not a gift bestowed upon others, but a liberation of the self, a letting go of the past to make room for the future. And so, with a heart heavy with remorse and yet buoyed by hope, I made the decision to embrace forgiveness, to let go of my anger and resentment, and to extend a hand of reconciliation to my ex-wife. In doing so, I found not only redemption for myself but also a path towards healing and wholeness. As we embarked on this journey of reconciliation, I knew that it wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, obstacles, moments of doubt and uncertainty. But amidst the trials and tribulations, there would also be moments of joy, of laughter, of love reclaimed. And so, with a renewed sense of purpose and a commitment to forgiveness, I embraced the opportunity to start anew, to rewrite the story of our lives together. For in the end, I realized that true redemption lay not in seeking vengeance, but in finding the courage to forgive, to heal, and to move forward with an open heart and a steadfast resolve. And as I looked towards the future, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I would face them not as adversaries but as allies, bound together by the bonds of forgiveness and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. As I reflect on the tumultuous journey that brought me to this moment, I find myself standing at the threshold of a new beginning. The wounds of the past, once raw and festering, have now begun to heal, leaving behind scars that serve as a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit. It is here, in the embrace of forgiveness and redemption, that I find myself writing the next chapter of my life alongside my ex-wife. It wasn't an easy road to get here, filled with twists and turns that tested the limits of my resolve. The bitterness that once consumed me like a raging fire has gradually been extinguished by the steady rain of understanding and compassion. As I sit across from her, the woman who was once the source of my deepest pain, I am struck by the profound sense of peace that washes over me. Our conversation flows effortlessly, punctuated by moments of laughter and shared memories. We talk about the mistakes we've made, the wounds we've inflicted upon each other, and the lessons we've learned along the way. There's a sense of honesty and vulnerability in the air, as we lay bare our souls before each other, stripped of pretense and ego. She speaks of her regret, her remorse for the pain she caused, and her longing for a second chance. Her words resonate with me, stirring something deep within my heart. For the first time in a long time, I allow myself to entertain the possibility of forgiveness, of moving forward together towards a brighter future. As the evening draws to a close, we part ways with a newfound sense of hope and possibility. The weight of the past no longer hangs heavily upon my shoulders, replaced instead by a sense of liberation and renewal. I find myself looking towards the future with a sense of cautious optimism, eager to see where this new chapter will take us. In the days that follow, we take tentative steps towards rebuilding what was once lost. We navigate the complexities of forgiveness and reconciliation, stumbling along the way but always finding our footing in the end. There are moments of doubt and uncertainty, but they are overshadowed by the unwavering belief that love has the power to conquer even the deepest of wounds. And so, as I sit here now, pen in hand, I am filled with gratitude for the opportunity to begin again. The journey ahead may be fraught with challenges and obstacles, but I face it with a heart full of hope and a soul buoyed by the knowledge that redemption is always within reach. As we embark on this new chapter together, I am reminded that love, in all its forms, has the power to transform even the darkest of nights into the brightest of dawns. And so, with a deep breath and a steady resolve, I take the first step towards a future filled with possibility and promise.